When the tide of their ambitions turned, they found themselves shipwrecked on the shores of their own arrogance. That's how it works. People gamble on others, placing their bets on who they think will rise and who will fall. And when their calculations fail, when their schemes collapse under their own weight, they crawl back. Not with dignity, no, with excuses, with half-hearted smiles, dragging the broken shards of their pride like chains. The irony? They once thought they were the gatekeepers of your worth. Now, they don't even belong at the threshold. There's something poetic about the sound of footsteps that hesitated too long. The ones who walked away when you were at your lowest, when your hands were tied, when your voice was just a whisper. Those footsteps echo differently when they return, not in triumph, but in desperation. The door they so easily slammed shut behind them now looms larger than life, an impenetrable wall that separates them from their own salvation. And yet they knock, hoping you've forgotten, hoping you're still standing there, waiting, forgiving. But you're not. Forgiveness is a peculiar thing, isn't it? The world romanticizes it, wraps it in gilded words and soft melodies, as though letting people back in is some divine gesture. But some doors are better left closed, some bridges burned to ash. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. It doesn't demand a seat at your table for those who pulled the chair out from under you. Let them stew in their longing, their regret. Let them realize the magnitude of the fortress they can no longer breach. When someone exits your life with such theatrical flair, they believe the stage was set for them. What they fail to see is that their departure wasn't the grand finale. It was the opening act for something much greater. The curtain rose on your evolution, your ascent, your transformation. And now, as they stand at the edge of this new stage, peering into the glow of your success, they don't recognize the person you've become. They're strangers to this version of you, and strangers are not welcomed into sacred spaces. The desperation of those who come crawling back is not rooted in love or regret. It's rooted in fear. Fear that the door they abandoned leads to a world they can no longer access. Fear that the person they underestimated has risen far beyond their reach. It's not you they want. It's what you've built, the light you now exude, the peace they can no longer disturb. And that's the thing about peace. It's priceless. Once you've earned it, you don't trade it for apologies wrapped in the same lies you once endured. There's a certain satisfaction in watching someone stumble over their own ego, in seeing them try to piece together the fragments of their once grand facade, now shattered by the very games they played. But satisfaction doesn't mean you have to open the door. Let them knock. Let them plead. Keep the silence on your side of the threshold. Silence is a language they don't understand, but one they'll be forced to learn. It's the sound of boundaries, fortified by lessons, hard-won. Some people mistake access for entitlement. They think, because they once held a key, they can come and go as they please. What they fail to grasp is that keys can be revoked, locks changed. And when those locks are built from resilience, self-respect, and unshakable resolve, no amount of pleading or prying can open them. The door isn't locked out of spite. It's locked out of necessity, out of survival, out of love for the person who lives inside. Regret is a heavy chain to wear, and those who return with it wrapped around their necks often think their burden should earn them forgiveness. But regret without change is manipulation, dressed in sorrow. And manipulation, no matter how cleverly disguised, has no place in a life rebuilt from the ground up. Let them carry their chains. Let them stumble beneath their weight. It's not your responsibility to lighten their load or offer a reprieve. Strength isn't in the door you close. It's in the fact that you've learned why it needed to be closed in the first place. Those who come crawling back often hope for the person they left behind, not realizing that person no longer exists. You've evolved, grown, become something unrecognizable to those who once sought to diminish you. And in that evolution lies your power. People never change, not in the ways that matter. They might rearrange the furniture of their lives, put on a new coat of paint, or learn to speak with softer words. But the foundations remain the same, cracked, rotting, hollow. Time doesn't mend these flaws. It amplifies them, cements them into something unmovable. They come crawling back with masks of reform, speaking the language of regret. But listen closely. The tune hasn't changed. It's the same old song, repackaged for a new audience. And the audience, they hope, is still you. There's a peculiar audacity in those who think they can rewrite history. They forget that some of us are archivists, cataloging every slight, every betrayal, every whispered lie. They assume time blurs the edges of the past, but time only sharpens the blade of memory. The ones who hurt you come back, wearing borrowed humility, expecting amnesia to have taken root in your soul. But amnesia is a gift reserved for the naive, and you've long since shed that skin. The scars on your heart are far too vivid for their apologies to erase. When people claim they've changed, what they really mean is they've adapted. Adaptation is not transformation. It's camouflage. The wolf doesn't lose its fangs. It learns to smile. The snake doesn't stop its venom. It coils itself tighter, striking only when your back is turned. To expect genuine change is to walk willingly into a trap, to hand your vulnerability to someone who once thrived on exploiting it. Recognizing this is not cynicism, it's survival. They come back because they want access to what you've built in their absence. What they fail to grasp is that you didn't build it for them. Every wall, every window, every stone of your newfound life is a monument to the strength you found in their absence. Opening the door to them would be desecration. Let them watch from the outside, their noses pressed against the glass. Let them feel the cold, the separation, the weight of their choices. People are creatures of habit. Patterns run through their lives like veins through marble. The liar will lie again. The betrayer will betray again. These aren't predictions. They're guarantees, written in the blood of countless, repeated mistakes. To believe otherwise is to invite chaos into your home, to welcome disaster with open arms. And chaos, as you've learned, is not something you can afford to host. No one returns without motive. Love isn't their compass. It's an illusion, a trick of light meant to disarm you. The return is transactional, a desperate bid to reclaim what they've lost. They call it reconciliation, but the scales always tip in their favor. They want forgiveness without atonement, access without boundaries, trust without earning it. This isn't change, it's entitlement. And entitlement has no place in the sanctuary you've created. Some will call you cruel for not opening the door. They'll weave tales of your coldness, your pride, your unforgiving nature. Let them. Cruelty is subjective, and your boundaries are not up for debate. Those who misunderstand your silence are the ones who would exploit your words. Let them paint you as the villain. It's a role you've learned to play well, and one that keeps the predators at bay. Your peace was hard-earned, carved from the wreckage of betrayal and deceit. To sacrifice it now, to let someone step into your sanctuary with muddy boots and unclean hands, would be the ultimate betrayal of yourself. You've bled for this peace, fought for it, burned bridges to protect it. No amount of knocking or pleading will make you forget what it cost. The mask of change always falls, and when it does, the face beneath is the same one you turned away from before. You owe nothing to those who abandoned you in your darkest hour. Let their pleas echo unanswered, their regret fall on deaf ears. The lesson they need isn't forgiveness. It's the understanding that actions have consequences, and some doors, once closed, stay locked. People crave stability, but not to emulate it, only to exploit it. Stability, after all, is a rare commodity in a world spinning with chaos. The stable ones are the anchors, the foundations, the unshakable constants that others lean on when the storms of their own making finally consume them. These individuals attract the unbalanced like moths to a flame. The problem is, the flame burns out faster when it has to light the way for those who refuse to find their own path. And when that light dims, those leeches move on, hunting for their next host, leaving nothing but emptiness behind. People who reappear often do so with soft words and grand gestures, disguising their desperation as reconciliation. But look closely. What they seek isn't connection, it's consumption. They see your stability as a resource to exploit, not as a virtue to admire. They return because your steadiness offers a respite from their self-created chaos. Once you let them in, the cycle begins again. They drain you, destabilize you, and then blame you when the cracks in their own lives grow too wide to ignore. It's no accident that unstable people gravitate toward the grounded. They see strength as a shield, protection from the consequences of their own recklessness. But stability isn't armor for the undeserving. It's a treasure forged in solitude, discipline, and resilience. Sharing it with the wrong people diminishes its value, turning something sacred into a lifeline for the undeserving. To open the door to such people is to compromise the fortress you've painstakingly built. There's a certain irony in the way users plead for re-entry. They paint themselves as victims of circumstance, as wanderers seeking shelter. But their sob stories are rehearsed, their tears as fleeting as the loyalty they offer in exchange for your grace. Stability can't be loaned out like currency. It is too precious for that. Those who fail to understand its worth are destined to lose access to it forever. It's tempting to believe in second chances, but second chances aren't gifts. They're contracts. They require trust, accountability, and effort from both parties. For someone who's already betrayed your stability once, the likelihood of them honoring such a contract is slim. The past doesn't lie, and neither do the patterns of those who see others only as stepping stones. Allowing someone back in is not an act of kindness. It's an invitation for history to repeat itself. The same people who drained your strength once will return to do it again. They don't seek reconciliation. They seek refuge. Refuge from their mistakes, their chaos, their inability to face themselves. And you, the stable one, become their escape plan. But your stability isn't theirs to squander. Leeches never stop feeding until there's nothing left to take. They attach themselves to the strongest host they can find, siphoning energy, resources, and peace until their victim is as empty as they are. Cutting them off isn't cruelty, it's survival. The longer you allow them to linger, the weaker you become. The door you shut is the line between self-preservation and self-destruction. Refusing someone re-entry is not about vengeance. It's about respect. Respect for the boundaries you've set, for the lessons you've learned, and most importantly, for the peace you've earned. People who come back after tearing you apart often don't see you. They see what they can gain from you. Letting them in would be a betrayal of yourself, and that's the one betrayal you cannot afford. Problems often masquerade as unmovable mountains, but the truth is, they are fleeting shadows cast by temporary emotions. What you call problems are often nothing more than passing waves, fierce in their moment, but destined to calm. And yet, people drown themselves in these shallow tides, thrashing against their own illusions of permanence. The trick is not to fight the wave, but to rise above it, to understand that chaos often carries no real substance, only the illusion of it. Those who create storms in your life know this, but they want you to forget it. The architects of drama thrive on your reactions. They study your every move, poking at your boundaries, feeding on your discomfort. The greatest hope is that you mistake their pettiness for something grand, something worth your attention. But when you step back, when you allow time to erode the edges of their chaos, you'll see their tantrums for what they are: weakness cloaked in theatrics. Problems don't define you. How you navigate their waves does. Emotions distort reality. In the throes of anger, sadness, or fear, the world shrinks, and perspective vanishes. Those who once sought to manipulate you hope you stay trapped in this emotional fog. They count on your inability to see past the present. But clarity comes when you let time reveal the insignificance of what once consumed you. Those waves of pain, anger, and betrayal, they fade, leaving you standing stronger, wiser, and untouchable. The power of time lies in its ability to strip away pretense. What feels overwhelming now will barely register as a memory tomorrow. And those who attempt to drag you down with their chaos, they're just a part of that temporary storm. They don't control your reality. They only amplify their own. The real power is in recognizing this and holding firm against the tides. People who come crawling back after tearing you apart thrive on your reaction. Their very existence feeds on your attention. But when you offer them nothing, no anger, no sadness, no acknowledgement, they face their own irrelevance. The silence you give them becomes a mirror, forcing them to confront what they truly are, insignificant to the life you've rebuilt without them. Most problems are like broken clocks, temporarily loud and intrusive, but eventually silenced by time. Let those who once brought drama fumble in their own miscalculations. They'll try to re-enter your life under the guise of resolution, but their motives remain the same. They seek control, attention, and the satisfaction of disrupting your peace. Don't grant them the stage they crave. Let their illusions collapse under the weight of your indifference. Reactions are the fuel for those who create chaos. Starve them of it. Let your calm be the storm that shakes their foundation. Nothing unsettles those who thrive on drama more than being met with apathy. Your lack of reaction isn't weakness. It's strength. A declaration that their games no longer hold power over you. The greatest lesson you can teach is silence. The waves of life don't stop, but you don't have to drown in them. When you recognize the fleeting nature of most problems, you take away their power. And when those who once disrupted your life come crawling back, their once grand manipulations seem pitiful. They haven't grown. They haven't changed. They're still floundering in their waves, hoping you'll dive in to save them. But you've already risen above. People enjoy watching you rise, but only to a point. That point, however, is not the pinnacle. It's the one just below their own. They smile as you climb, feigning encouragement, but their hands grip the edges of their thrones tighter with each step you take. Their approval is a currency that devalues the moment your ascent threatens their spotlight. Your ambition becomes an offense to their mediocrity and your excellence, a reflection of their inadequacies. Let them watch then. Let them stew in the bitterness of their envy while you scale the heights they swore you'd never reach. Those who claim to support you often do so only within the confines of their comfort zones. Their generosity fades as your success begins to outshine their expectations. They were fine with your progress when it served as a testament to their own guidance or generosity. But when your brilliance stands as a beacon unto itself, unconnected to their influence, they recoil. It's not your growth they despise. It's the independence that accompanies it. Let their discomfort fester while you continue undeterred. Envy is a silent poison. It doesn't announce itself. It whispers. It creeps into smiles, infects applause, and turns once genuine encouragement into hollow platitudes. The envious crave proximity to greatness, but only to bask in its reflection, never to endure the glare of its reality. They will try to dim your light, to keep you close but contained. But light has no obligation to remain where it's not appreciated. Burn brighter. Those who claim they want what's best for you are often lying, if only to themselves. What they truly want is a version of you that stays manageable, predictable, inferior. They speak of support, but only mean submission. When your dreams begin to grow wings that can outfly their own, they will attempt to clip them. This is their nature, and it is your duty to soar higher. Exceeding others' expectations often feels like a betrayal to them. They mourn the person you used to be, not out of nostalgia, but because that version of you posed no threat. As you evolve, you force them to confront the stagnation of their own lives. They hate this mirror you unintentionally hold up to them, but that's not your problem. Keep holding it. Let their reflection haunt them. Jealousy thrives in the shadows of your accomplishments. It feeds on the gaps between where they hoped you'd be and where you've actually landed. These shadows, though, are of their own making. You owe them no explanation for your success, no justification for your triumphs. Their discomfort is the byproduct of their limited vision, not your excess. Let them squirm as your victories outgrow the narratives they wrote for you. Those who once clapped for you will try to pull you back when your progress outpaces their applause. Their applause wasn't for your success. It was for their ability to claim they supported it. When you no longer need their approval, they'll call you arrogant, ungrateful, changed. Let them. Change is the natural consequence of growth. Their accusations are confessions of their own inadequacies. The world is full of people who will act as anchors under the guise of being lifelines. They'll tether themselves to your journey, promising to steady you, but their weight will only drag you down. They crave your progress, not for your sake, but for their control. Cut the line. Leave them in the waters they tried to drown you in. Let their manipulation fail against your resilience. Rising above others is not a crime, but to those below, it feels like 1. Their resentment is a cage they built for themselves, mistaking your success for their failure. It's not your job to free them from this delusion. Keep climbing. Let them rattle their bars as your ascent reminds them of the freedom they chose not to chase.